Your child is not trying to escape you. I need you to actually hear this before we go any further. When they run, when they elope, they are not running from you. They are trying to escape their nervous system. And that is a completely different problem with a completely different solution. So hi, I'm Natalie Pelto of Blue Life RX, and today we're talking about eloping in autism. So what's happening in the body when a child runs? What's triggering it from the outside? And what we can actually do about it beyond door alarms and bolt locks and feeling like you're living a little bit in a fortress. So let's go. So the nervous system has three states: fight, flight, and freeze. Most of us have heard about this in the context of trauma, and this may be the first time you ever hear about this. And you may think to yourself, my child has never had trauma. But in autism, the nervous system can tip into these states with very little external triggers, meaning they don't technically have to have been exposed to trauma, because the internal landscape is actually already maxed out. I want you to think about it. If your gut is in pain, your blood sugar just crashed, you didn't sleep, the lights are fluorescent and the background noise is coming from every direction, and you haven't been through neural pruning like a neurotypical child, by the next thing that hits, the body doesn't wait, it runs. And there are cases where they are eloping for pleasure of sensory-seeking behaviors. But for today, we're going to talk about this concept, because running is a survival response. The nervous system is doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's just doing it in a world that doesn't understand why, and a world that doesn't have the supports to keep them safe. So here's the short list of what I actually see driving eloping in kids that we work with. So blood sugar crashes is one. When blood sugar drops, the brain goes into emergency mode. And one of the most common expressions of that is bolting. It's also sometimes because they're looking for another blood sugar spike support. Gut pain is a secondary. A backed up, inflamed gut creates a body full of distress signals. And when you can't communicate that, you move. And when you're not able to communicate, you go in the direction of things or places that you think are going to support your nervous system. And this brings me to sensory overload and lack of awareness. The environment can either be too loud, too bright, too much, or even the opposite, not loud, not bright, not sensory enough. And so the exit can be the only regulation available, or the exit can be the only place to seek such sensory experiences, which is why we see so many children who elope, and God rest their souls, the children who have, been really gravitating towards river. Children on the spectrum love to engage with water, even though they don't understand the dangers of it. It is a sensory experience. And then thinking about sleep deprivation, a child who isn't getting enough restorative sleep is running on a deregulated nervous system every single day. And their baseline for overwhelm is truly low. And their threshold for bolting is truly a hair trigger. So this brings us to the concept that this is not necessarily behavioral the way that we've heard it described to us in the past. All of these underlying causes are biological. And that puts a lot of empowerment back in our hands. Okay, so we've talked about the inside. Let's talk a little bit about the outside, because in our program, we have parents and coaches who are really honest about this and very vulnerable. Sometimes eloping is also triggered by a communication breakdown on both sides. From the child side, they don't have the language to say, I need a break. I'm overwhelmed. I don't understand what you're asking of me right now. And so the run is the communication. They're stepping away to regulate. Now, from the outside, and I say this with zero judgment because this is genuinely hard, the environment is often also asking too much. No gets said without context, not now gets said without a bridge to when. The language we're using assumes a level of processing and competence that the brain cannot access in that moment. And here's the neuroscience piece. When the prefrontal cortex is offline, which it is when the body is deregulated, and it is not even fully developed till we're 28 to 30, Language comprehension sometimes can tank when you're in a state of deregulation. So even though a set of instructions can seem very simple, it doesn't land. So it's not because your child is defiant. I hear this all the time, a lot of frustration in the schools, teachers, especially in areas of the world where autism is very new. It is not because a child is defiant. It is because the brain was not in a state to receive it. So I'm going to bring a little bit of a opinion here, is that although ABA can be helpful in some cases, and of course there's a lot of controversy around ABA, but in some cases it's helpful. ABA, think of it as like the curb appeal, the fresh paint and the pretty siding, but nutrition and lifestyle, that is the foundation of supporting a child through these very dangerous moments. And if all you do is paint over cracking foundation, when a storm hits, the whole thing's going to crumble. So we're not anti-therapy here, but we work alongside therapy. But therapy applied on top of a deregulated biology gets limited results every single time. So what does real change actually look like here for your child? First, it's a good start is a metabolic approach in these cases. Stabilizing blood sugar. And I know that sounds boring. I do, because it sounds like something that your uncle got told when he got diabetes. But the truth is, a child eating strategically whose blood sugar is not spiking and crashing has a fundamentally different nervous system at baseline. And the threshold for overwhelm goes up, and there are not ups and downs like a roller coaster throughout the day. Recovery time after deregulation goes down, and this is just biology, which we know is the foundational factor. Second, we address the gut, because a regulated gut sends regulated signals to the brain. And when the gut stops being a source of silent pain, the nervous system can rest. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but the rest and digest state is a true thing, and it's an evidence-based thing. Third, predictable routines are helpful. This is where that therapy layering can come in. And I don't mean rigid schedules, though, although many would say so. I mean neurological anchors, consistent rhythms, and the brain can predict while still being able to be adaptable. So a brain that can predict an environment spends less energy on threat detection. And a brain spending less energy on threat detection has more availability for communication, more speech, learning, memory, and connection. So I always put this idea that I think is a really fabulous question that we should be asking ourselves consistently, and I ask myself this daily and weekly, is that if 6 months from now nothing's changed and the gut is still inflamed, the blood sugar is still unstable, and the nervous system has no new tools, the eloping is likely not going to go away. Truthfully, in most cases of what we've seen is that it escalates because the child is getting bigger, stronger, faster, and the root cause, though, is still there. The window to build regulation before adolescence is not unlimited, and that's not me being dramatic. That's developmental reality, especially between the ages of 11 to 13, where puberty hits, because neural pruning has an entire different, it happens in the only other time in our life where this happens. So if your child is eloping regularly and you want to understand what that is actually driving that, I want you in our neuronutrition program so that you can learn about that foundation, especially if you have a child who is a picky and sensory eater. Because here's what's wild. When we start with food, we open the gut, we stabilize the blood sugar, we build real nourishment in the day, we reduce inflammation, the running decreases, not because we trained it away. It's because the body finally had what it needed. So links are in the description. Come and check it out. If this was valuable to you, make sure to subscribe and like, and we'll see you in the next video.